What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pinal here, breaking down week 20 of the NFL season for DraftKings and FanDuel. We have 4 games this weekend, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. If you do enjoy today's video, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. Let's dive right into it. And as always, we'll start with the quarterback position, and I just have everyone listed on here. Now, I probably am going to not get to Matthew Stafford or CJ Stroud on this slate, but everybody else seems pretty viable. Now, if you are playing cash games specifically, it's hard not to just play Jaden Daniels. I don't see a reason not to play him. He has a great rushing floor, which also offers a high ceiling, gets a good spot versus Detroit, 55.5 point over under. And with them being 9.5 point dogs on the road in the Dome with a 24 point implied team total, he's going to have to probably try to make some plays happen. So whether that be nice scrambles or just throwing a lot in the second half, I think that does benefit Jaden Daniels quite a bit. Obviously, if you can afford guys like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, or really just anybody else, go for it in tournaments. But if it is cash games, I think Daniels pretty much is the best spot. Also, projection-wise and point per dollar-wise specifically, he's not. I think he's QB3 on the slate for me projection-wise. But point per dollar, he is the top guy. But as I always say, cash games are boring. So let's talk some stacks for tournaments. If you guys ever want access to the entire NFL model, I project out the entire slate. I cover showdowns when applicable. But obviously this week, we kind of just have the 4-gamer. But I do projections for both sites, optimizer, ownership projections, cheat sheets, going over cash games and tournaments. And we do have NASCAR starting very soon, which is my main sport. I cannot wait for that. Lots of new surprises that I can't wait to show you. All right, let's head over to my plot here to visualize what the stacks look like. Because we can look at it on an Excel sheet, but I think it's more fun to look at it on a plot sheet. I did add pictures this time instead of the abbreviations, so hopefully it's more fun to look at. Anyway, we have the team total. So that's going to be left and right, east and west. Then north-south, we have the DraftKings projected ownership, which obviously this can change by Sunday. I'm recording this on Thursday, or it could change on Saturday, depending on which games we are talking about. Then we have the mean lines here for the averages. So if you're looking in the upper right quadrant, we have our high implied team total teams and our chalkier teams. So I guess you could kind of call this good chalk, depending on which players you are looking at. But we always seem to have like a big outlier, and that this week, that is the Detroit Lions. They have 33 implied. It's 33.5 or 33. Either way, it's the highest I have seen almost ever. Maybe, but I get it. They're at home, and obviously the offense is amazing. There's no reason not to like Detroit, just besides ownership, I guess. But they are the top of the list this week. Then we also have just a cluster of Baltimore, KC, and Buffalo. Their team totals are just about the same. Ownership looks about the same. They all look like the same exact team on paper for fantasy purposes this week, so that's fun to try to digest. The Eagles aren't going to be that owned. Also, there might be some weather in that game. They're a little bit lower in the ownership, but the implied team totals nearly the same if you're trying to get off some of the chalkier teams, like the Ravens, Chiefs, and Buffalo Bills. Then we have the Washington Commanders up in their own quadrant up there in the left, but they're kind of on par with Buffalo, KC, and Baltimore. And the Houston Texans and the Los Angeles Rams, low implied team total, lower ownership. I don't have much interest in either team, especially the Houston Texans, so I'm probably going to stay away from them. Sure, there's fine individual pieces from those teams, but this is looking at it from a stack perspective. Like, sure, if you want to play Kyren Williams or Puka Nacua, by all means, you can do that. If you want to play Nico Collins or Joe Mixon, you can do that, but just from an overall team stack perspective, like saying I want to play CJ Stroud, Dalton Schultz, Nico Collins, and some of the Houston Texans, they're just not going to project as well as other teams. But this is looking at team total, not projections. But if we do pull up the projections here in a new plot, it's similar as for where the teams are, but it's still just a little bit different. So Houston Texans, once again, yeah, they're at the very bottom left here as far as overall team projection, and their ownership is going to be the lowest. Detroit Lions still in the upper right quadrant. I mean, they have 2 great running backs. David Montgomery is going to be back this week. He is practicing in full. Just everybody's great on Detroit. They're going to be high owned. They're going to project well. They're going to have a high team total. I think you guys get the idea between that. So if we are still playing Detroit Lions, like just because they're chalky doesn't mean we can't play them. Like you can play Detroit Lions. You can just get some lower owned guys mixed in with it. And that's perfectly fine. But then the cluster kind of changes a little bit. So the Chiefs get a slight edge on the Baltimore Ravens and Buffalo Bills, but they're all very similar. And then the Commanders kind of edge over to that right quadrant, although they're just pretty much dead center on that one line. So honestly, for me, the teams I want to pick from are just pretty much these 5 in the upper right, and I don't have much interest in the bottom 3. So moving over to our lineup here, and as I always say, guys, don't copy and paste this. I am just grabbing a quarterback that we talked about, and then we'll build a stack off of it that makes sense for the roster construction that I'm looking at for single entry / 3 max type builds. You can apply your own favorite plays and use a similar process. It's that simple. All right, so we have a long list of quarterbacks to pick from. It's the playoffs. It's the divisional round. Pretty much all these guys are good, so it's hard to get like too differentiated from like why the other one's better than the other. Obviously, the game of the week is the Detroit Lions and the Washington Commanders. That is an awesome game. I would love to get as much exposure as possible to it, but everyone's going to do that, so let's just be a little bit different in this video. Let's play Patrick Mahomes. He is dirt cheap at $6,000. They've been throwing the ball a ton the last few starts that he has been playing. And obviously, there's no time to mess around. This is the playoffs. They're going to want to put the Houston Texans away. Run game with Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco is a little bit muddy, so we'll play the pass catchers from this one. And we don't necessarily have to run it back with anybody on Houston. I mean, we can if we want, but we can go full Chiefs onslaught here, and we'll get bits and pieces from the other games just so we can soak up some of their points scored. Now we have the running backs, and I pretty much excluded all the RB2s besides Austin Eckler, although he's kind of like a 1A, 1B with Brian Robinson at this point. But if we are looking at cash games for running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs has to be the top dog. I know David Montgomery is back. I'm assuming Monty is not going to have the same exact workload that he had beforehand. First off, Jahmyr Gibbs has been awesome. Second off, he's holding off on a surgery. So it's probably going to be somewhat lighter of a workload. I was looking at his props, and they are down a little bit from his normal props that we see. I think it's like at 47 for his rushing yards. I think the total yardage from rushing and receiving is set at 67, which that's still viable on a 2-game slate. Plus, if you look at the anytime touchdown odds for these guys, it's insane. I think I saw one book have Jahmyr Gibbs at almost minus 400. So, I mean, when you have a 33.5 implied team total and you're playing at home, like, yeah, these guys are probably going to find the end zone. But Jahmyr Gibbs, top of the list for me. If you are on FanDuel, look at David Montgomery's price tag. He is the bare minimum. He is $4,000. And if Vegas is pretty much projecting him at roughly, I forget what his odds were, like minus 200, minus 300. That's over a 50% chance for a touchdown. So we can kind of bake in like 3 to 4-ish points just based off those implied odds. We can look at the near 70 total yardage there. That's on FanDuel. It's, well, FanDuel receptions. I think his reception prop is at 1 or 1.5. So it's about like half a point to a point, whatever you want to do with that. And then nearly 7 points just based off a yard. So at a bare minimum price point, plus there's always chance for more. He's on Detroit. He could get 2 touchdowns. That is certainly possible. At $4,000, I am playing him in every single lineup. Like if I'm doing a 150 max this weekend, which I did last week for one of the 2 or 3 games, I think the Sunday 3-game slate. So we'll see what I end up doing for Saturday, Sunday. But either way, on FanDuel, any lineup I build is most likely gonna have Dave Montgomery. Like I don't mind just lock buttoning him, because we had a similar situation with the Los Angeles Chargers around Christmas with J.K. Dobbins. He was 4K flat. I forget what slate this was. I don't think it was Christmas. It might have been, I don't know what slate that was. But either way, it's like a Saturday 2-gamer, Saturday 3-gamer, whatever it was. But J.K. Dobbins was min-price, and obviously he got like nearly 20 fantasy points, which was great. I'm not sure we can expect that once again. I got Dave Montgomery projected for over 3x on FanDuel. I mean, it's just hard not to play him. Other than that, not really anybody else that super stands out for cash games. I wouldn't hate getting the Joe Mixon. I know it's kind of a bad spot as a 8.5 point dog on the road, but he'll get the dump offs. He's still going to get the workload at $6,500 and 76 on FanDuel. It's still fine to me, but everybody else kind of looks the same. Like, yeah, Barkley's awesome. Derrick Henry's awesome. Jahmyr Gibbs already talked about. Kyren Williams price point, people will probably get there. 6-point dogs on the road in Philly, but them being on the road and potential weather, obviously we kind of expect him to get a heavy dosage of work. Same with James Cook. Like everybody else kind of just meshes in the same. So Detroit running backs are at the top of the list for me, especially Jahmyr Gibbs. Everybody else is kind of like a trickle down. Austin Eckler, I don't think it's a bad tournament play. If Washington is trailing, we probably won't see much Brian Robinson, and Austin Eckler can get the checkdowns and he'll just be in the game, and that's pretty much all we can ask for. And heading back over to the build, since I am not going with the Detroit or Washington complete stack, I need some points from that game because they're going to score points. It's not going to be 6 to 7. So let's just throw in Jahmyr Gibbs. We'll try to find a way to make that fit. But Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he is like a very cheap quarterback on this slate. So it's not like we spent top dollar. So we should have plenty of money for pretty much whoever else we want, because I know the stacking options in KC are not that expensive either. And then we have our choice between guys like Barkley, Henry, Kyron Williams. If I had the choice, Saquon would be my number one guy here, but I don't know what kind of the money situation is going to look like yet. So we're going to play Kyron Williams for now at $6,900, then we'll move on to wide receiver. The wide receiver, it's pretty easy to talk about because on a slate like this, we're stacking and correlating our lineups. So if I have Patrick Mahomes, I am looking at guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. And like I said, this KC stack is really cheap. Worthy's only $5,200. The Hollywood Brown's all the way down there at $4,200. Hopkins cheap as well, but man, he feels like a part-time player at this point. It's kind of weird. Maybe they're setting him for the playoffs and get some more expanded role. We will see, because we saw early in the season when he got traded there, they were using him. But Xavier Worthy is definitely taking a big step up. They're using him in the offense a lot more, and he's also really good at football, which helps. And Hollywood Brown, we know he has shown flashes in the past, and he's been used in this offense too. But very cheap stacks with Patrick Mahomes. And then we also have Travis Kelce at tight end when we talk about that. If we are playing Jared Goff is not going to get 3 rushing touchdowns and 60 rushing yards like a guy like Jaden Daniels can. So we have to pair him with pass catchers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Tim Patrick, and they also got Cleve Raymond back, but I don't think I would do that. So mainly for the main 2 guys. And I love Jameson Williams on FanDuel at that $6,700 price point, really on both sites. If you are playing Matthew Stafford for some reason, which I'm not going to, but Matthew Stafford is like Jared Goff. He's not going to run the football, so you got to look at Puka Nacua, whoever else pass catching options he has available to us, which it only feels like Puka Nacua these days. But hopefully I made that as simple as possible. These rushing quarterbacks, you don't necessarily have to stack with them, but I'd probably try to get at least one guy. You can play Josh Allen naked because he really spreads the ball out, but like Lamar Jackson, I'm fine with pairing him with just one, like either a Mark Andrews or Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely, whoever you want to. And same can be said with Jaden Daniels. If you just want to go with Terry McLaurin, that's fine. If you want to double stack him with Terry McLaurin and Zach Ertz or De'Ami Brown, something like that, that's also fine. And back to the build, it's going to be very simple. We have Patrick Mahomes, and since it's such a small slate, these are the kinds of slates that I don't mind where if we go like a triple stack. I don't normally do that, but on small slates, I think it's fine to hit my mic to break the rules a little bit. So we have a couple of wide receivers that I have some interest in here. We have Xavier Worthy at $5,200. We will play him. And then Hollywood Brown all the way down there at $4,200. I just love the price points on both of these guys. It's going to open up our lineup a little bit. And I think Travis Kelce is like 5K. Yeah, 5K flat. So it's very easy to triple stack. We'll pretty much get all the Patrick Mahomes points there, just because I don't want to hedge myself out of Patrick Mahomes. Like, sure, people kind of go with the idea where, well, if I play Mahomes and I play his pass catchers, if Mahomes sucks, my entire lineup's going to suck. Well, that's the point. It's a tournament. You don't want to play for min cash. If you're playing Patrick Mahomes, your assumption, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, it's just your assumption is going to be like, yeah, Mahomes is getting 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. And if he's doing that, well, his pass catchers are doing that too. We're playing for a ceiling, not a floor min cash. That's for cash games. So we're going to probably triple stack with them here. I don't know if we're going to get a run back in. Depends what kind of money or our roster construction looks like at the end. But let's move on to the tight end really quick and we'll come back. And the tight ends kind of have a similar premise to the wide receivers where a lot of it's usually just stacking options. If I am playing cash games, say Laporta would be my top dog here. Just a lot of points are going to be scored from Detroit. And I would say his touchdown chances are probably better than most here at the tight end position. Also really like Mark Andrews and then Travis Kelce. Like those are your 3 cash game tight ends. Then for tournaments, again, it just comes down to the stacks. I like Zach Ertz and GPPs. Dallas Goedert can also work over there, but he's pretty expensive over on FanDuel compared to DraftKings. Big price discrepancy there. And then Kincaid, that's just more of a dart throw. And then Isaiah Likely with Nose Flowers, he definitely gets a bump. He was involved early on last week, but the Ravens kind of had that game won and they just ran the ball pretty much the rest of the game. This one should be closer with a 1.5 point spread, so look for the passing game to hopefully be a little bit more alive throughout the entire game. All right, let's finish this build off. We have 4 spots, $5,000 to do it. It should be pretty easy. We're going the triple stack with Travis Kelce. We have still $5,000 with our 3 spots, and one of those is the defense. So that's going to open up some more salary. I mean, most of the teams that are playing this week are pretty good, so defense isn't really easy to get to. The Chiefs are the number 1 defense for me projection-wise, and then the Eagles, obviously. Since I have a full Chiefs stack, I'm going to hope that the Texans can fight back a little bit, so I don't know if it makes a ton of sense to play the Chiefs defense in this build. Not saying you can't do it. I mean, the Chiefs could win 40-10. That's possible. But we're going to hope in this build that the Texans fight a little bit. So we'll play the Eagles. I know we have Kyron Williams, but it's not a big deal. Running back kind of, I mean, it doesn't suck on this slate because we have so many good ones, but I just can't afford Saquon Barkley in them. I don't mind just having one player against the defense. Like if Kyron Williams gets 90 yards and a touchdown, that's the Eagles defense is not dead in that point, and then Kyron Williams is still fine. So we have $5,800 left for the remaining 2 spots. I want some pass catchers from that Detroit game, Washington. So I'd like to get one. So we have Jahmyr Gibbs. We're assuming Detroit's winning. They're running the ball. We can run it back with Terry McLaurin. I think that's perfectly fine. $6,300. Then we have $5,300 for the flex spot. And I don't have any interest in Brian Robinson on this slate, really. I don't mind Austin Eckler, but I already have one of the Washington guys. So I think maybe Khalil Shakir probably would make the most sense because I'd like a piece of that Buffalo and Baltimore game. And Shakir's not a world beater or anything, but at least we get a piece of that. And since that's the late Sunday game, he's in the flex spot, so that works out as well. So, I mean, it's not the best looking lineup ever. And honestly, defense, that can be very interchangeable here, so I'll leave that blank. But for the premise of this build, we had the KC onslaught with Mahomes, Worthy, Brown, and Travis Kelce. And we did not run it back with anybody. If you wanted to, you can. You could change Kyren Williams to Joe Mixon. It's just, I didn't feel it was absolutely necessary. We put Kyren in at running back. Jahmyr Gibbs hook up those Detroit points. We have Terry McLaurin as the run back option with that for like a mini stack. And then we have Khalil Shakir in the flex because he fit and he also projects pretty well. But if you wanted to turn this into something else, like if we just really quick did a, say, Washington and Detroit stack, we could easily just play Jaden Daniels here. We can still play Jahmyr Gibbs. We can throw in any running back we want. We'll see what kind of salary we have to work with. We can use Terry McLaurin. We can also, I guess, just use Zach Ertz. You could run it back with Sam Laporta. I guess that would be an option if you wanted to. But we'll just throw in Zach Ertz for now. We play the Chiefs defense since we don't have a Chiefs stack here. Running back, I guess, it could be Kyren Williams again. I mean, I really do like that price point quite a bit. I'm not sure we're going to be able to afford St. Brown, but we can save some money with the Jameson Williams. And then we still have $4,200 left. If you want to get some of the Chiefs points, you can. We have Hollywood Brown there, flex spot, $4,200. And then, I mean, you could play Sam Laporta. The double defense is always fine on a small slate like this. So just so you guys, like, it's very interchangeable, like, of what you want to do depending which stack you want to go with, but it's the same kind of roster construction is kind of the point I'm making. And moving on to the optimizer here to see which players are popping. It's Thursday, so projection can change, ownership can change. Let's add a little bit of randomness in here. Not going to make tight end flex ineligible. Not going to mess with really anything else. On small sets like this, sometimes you get like an overabundance of like from one team. So if you wanted to like turn that out to like 4 max, you could do that. I'm not going to. We'll do some quick stacking settings here. You can obviously specify from a certain team or make it to where you don't want to do it with a certain team, like Buffalo. If you want to just have Josh Allen naked, you can do that, but I'm not going to do anything here just for the sake of time. We'll run a quick 20 max here, and I'll see you all in a second. And just like that, we are back. So looking at some of the builds here, I'm seeing a lot of Jaden Daniels and seeing a lot of Patrick Mahomes, which makes sense because point per dollar wise, they are pretty high on my projections. But a lot of Khalil Shakir, a lot of Sam Laporta, Derrick Henry coming in higher than I thought, which because at his price point, I was thinking it might be a little bit more difficult to get there. But I guess Mahomes is not that expensive. So and the stacks are pretty cheap. So I might just be jamming in the best projection plays, which I get. Kelce, Jahmyr Gibbs, Mahomes, Barkley. So it's not as hard as I was thinking maybe to get to some of these more expensive running backs at least. McLaurin, Chiefs defense, Texans defense getting in there a ton as well. But that game does have one of the lower over-unders, so I can understand that. But not overly surprised at the absolute top guys. If we're looking at the teams, KC at the top, Detroit, which KC defense is also getting pumped in. But Detroit, Baltimore, Buffalo, pretty much every game is going to be used here because such a small slate. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. But I wish you all the best, and I'll see you all next time.